Ever since Eddie Munson mashed out Master of Puppets in the Upside Down, it seems like about every guitar player has been itching to learn some Metallica. But if you want to honor Eddie, you've got to harness the downstroke power, speed, and endurance of James Hetfield. So in today's video, I'm going to give you guys 4 different things to think about when trying to increase your downstroke game. You're going to go from stepdad speed to hetdad speed, or your money back. Hey there kids, it's your good buddy, Uncle Ben. Due to the success of Stranger Things Season 4, which was freaking awesome by the way, Metallica's Master of Puppets is once again on the charts, and guitar players everywhere are testing their metal skills, trying to learn how to play this awesome tune. And what a great time it is to be learning that song, considering that there's so many incredibly accurate tutorials and stuff here on YouTube. If you want to learn exactly how the band plays the main riff of the tune, be sure to check out Weekend Wank Shop number 80 right here on my channel. But even if you learn the song note for note perfectly, if you're not playing it with those super aggressive, fast downstrokes, it's not going to sound exactly right. So in today's video, I'm going to give you guys the tools you'll need to become a downstroke demon. As always, this video is brought to you guys by everybody who supports my channel over on my Patreon page, patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. Sign up today. Even for just $1 a month, you're going to get access to a ton of downloadable tabs, bonus videos, and a community of awesome people just like yourself. So don't delay, sign up today. Gear-wise for today's video, I'm playing my ancient Ibanez RG550 right here, which has Fishman Fluence Classic pickups in it, and I'm playing through the Fractal Audio Axe FX. Also, to give you guys the closest view possible of what the picking hand is doing, I'm going to be using this little doohickey right here, which is the Magnet. This was given to me by Troy Grady, who makes the incredible Cracking the Code series of videos, and if I'm not mistaken, these are going to be for sale soon, so be sure to follow all his socials for details on that. Okay, first things first, let's rethink some of that terminology about downstrokes, because that term itself is a little bit misleading. Now, usually whenever we hear the term downstroke, we're thinking about the pick moving straight down towards the floor, like this. In reality, for really high-speed situations, that is a really inefficient movement because the pick is always ending up kind of in between, in this case, the E and the A string, if it just goes straight down. That means before you can recover and play the next downstroke, the pick has to kind of leap back over the string in this kind of semicircular motion that you're seeing right there. Now, if you watch the way that James does his really fast downstroke stuff, what you'll notice is that it's actually more of an outstroke than a downstroke. Looks kind of like this. See what I mean? The pick isn't necessarily going down, it's kind of going out at an angle. It's kind of brushing the top of the string in the process, which gives you that nice little aggressive swish at the front end of the note, which sounds cool anyway. This kind of outstroke motion makes it quicker to reload, so to speak, and get right back above the low E string so you can execute another downstroke. I think that outstroke concept is a lot more important to pay attention to than the other nuances of James's playing, like his 3-fingered pick grip that you see him using most of the time. You can do that if you want to, if you feel like that kind of gives you some more stability, but I don't know, I don't think it's all that important, honestly. Same thing with like string gauges, pick gauges, all that kind of jazz. Just go with whatever works well for you. Let me hit you guys with a couple more downstroke heavy riffs so you can see that outstroke in action. Okay, so now that you've got the picking motion down, let's talk about another extremely important aspect of getting this stuff to sound and feel right which is the palm muting approach, guys, because even if you have great picking technique, if your palm muting technique isn't there, none of this stuff is really going to come together. It's all about the 3 P's of palm muting: position, power, and pressure. Let's talk about that. Okay, position. What I mean by that is getting the hand in exactly the right spot. Because whenever you're palm muting, if you're too far forward, it just kind of turns into that clanky mess right there. But if you're too far back, it gets kind of mushy sounding. Plus, then you can start mashing on your tremolo bridge or whatever too. You've got to have the palm in exactly the right position. And what I aim for is to get my hand right here in what I call the ditch. It's kind of it's the taint of the guitar, if you will. It's this area here in between the bridge and the backside of the bridge pickup. You can see the little white strip of pick guard right here on my guitar. That is around where I like to have that karate chop portion of my hand to get the maximum impact and muting power while still preserving the dignity of the notes themselves. So you just kind of got to sit there with your guitar and chug away for a little while to find exactly the right position. But you'll know it when you find it, because you'll still be able to tell what notes you're playing, but they'll also sound super tight. Now let's talk about pressure, which is something that you're gonna have to have in order to make this stuff sound nice and aggressive, and nobody ever talks about this for some reason. It's not enough just to simply have that fatty edge of the hand sitting on top of the strings like that. You can still get some kind of weak sounding chugs if you're just laying the hand barely on the strings. Don't be afraid to really pressurize here and push into the strings a little bit. It's just gonna make everything sound a lot more tight and aggressive. Let me demonstrate here by putting a non-pressurized hand on the strings and then mashing that hand in and pressurizing a little bit so you can hear the difference. Hear how whenever I pressurize it, it gets more metallic sounding, for lack of a better word? You gotta have that if you want this stuff to sound right, and it's all about just pressurizing a little bit. Now, of course, you can overdo this. If you're pressurizing the palm mute and it's making like, you know, the strings touch the top of the pickup, well, that's gonna sound terrible. That'll happen especially too if you keep your pickups too high, which you shouldn't be doing anyway. All right, so power. You gotta have this, because even if you have your hand in the right spot and you're pressurizing it right and all that jazz, if you're hitting the strings too lightly, it's still gonna sound kind of flubby and weak like this. Listen to the difference. Completely different tone just by bashing those strings a little bit harder. So don't be afraid to really get in there and dig in with the pick a little bit. Uncle Ben in the editing chair right here. One little thing that I forgot to mention during the video about why it's important to get your palm muting down is because it essentially tames the vibrations of the string. Whenever you're palm muting that string good and hard, it's limiting how much it can vibrate. Whereas if you have like a loose palm mute or you're not palm muting at all, every time you do an aggressive downstroke, that string is vibrating like crazy, and then you're trying to do consecutive downstrokes. It's like trying to hit a moving target, you know? But whenever you palm mute and it limits how much the string can vibrate, your downstrokes are going to be a lot more consistent just because the string is moving less. So keep that in mind and work on those chugs. Okay, so you got the technique, you've got the sound, now you've got to talk about building the endurance, right? Because playing Master of Puppets is seriously like running a marathon. It's extremely long, it's extremely fast, and there's so much downstroke heavy stuff going on in this tune. But similar to running a marathon, you don't just decide you're going to do that one day, right? You got to build your way up. You've got to build up that endurance. And we can do this very similar to the way that long-distance runners train to run those marathons. At least, I assume that's how they do it anyway. I was homeschooled, so I never had PE, so maybe I'm wrong. And of course, just like your stepmom told me, building up endurance takes time. That's nothing to be ashamed about. If you're the kind of player that likes practicing using a metronome, here's a great way to build up some endurance. Maybe while you binge watch through all of Stranger Things again, as I am likely to be doing soon. I've got the metronome here set at a pretty reasonable tempo of 140 BPM, but your mileage may vary. If that's too fast, slow it down. If it's too easy, speed it up. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is to play, let's say 2 measures worth of 1/8 notes, meaning 2 notes per beat, as downstrokes. It's gonna sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Now after that, what I'm going to do is to take a little bit of a rest and just play 2 measures of quarter note downstrokes. So just going 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. So 2 measures on, 2 measures off. It'll sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I was also palm muting it because so many of these riffs are played with palm muting anyway. Why practice it with like an open string like that? Don't even bother. Now as you do this, what I want you to watch for is while you're playing the relatively sedate quarter note measures, I want you to notice if anything in your body is starting to relax. Because if you were doing the 8th notes and then you go to the quarter notes and you feel like, let's say your shoulders drop or you feel yourself exhale or your pick grip loosens or whatever, that means you were holding unnecessary tension while you were doing the fast stuff, right? So going back and forth, going from 5th gear to 1st gear like we are with this exercise is a great way to monitor if you're building up tension, because any tension that you're holding is only going to slow you down and it's only going to get worse the faster you're playing. I would recommend gradually increasing the speed of the metronome by about, I don't know, let's say 5 BPM at a time for this exercise, making sure you're staying relaxed and everything. Now, after you can do the 2 on, 2 off thing, again, we're trying to build endurance here, so we're gonna go a little further. Let's try 3 measures on, 1 measure off. 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, 2, 3, rest. But to be totally honest, I doubt that this is the way that James himself developed his endurance and speed. I just can't see, beer smashing, long-haired guy with eat fuck on his guitar slaving away in front of the metronome for hours and hours to build up his downstroke speed. I bet you almost anything that James instead went with the tried and true method that has helped so many other legendary guitar players build up their skills, which is playing along with their favorite songs. Seriously guys, there's no technique that you can learn that a song can't teach you. I am a firm believer in this stuff. If you want to develop the skills of your favorite guitar players, don't learn their songs. Learn the songs that they learned to get them there. Metallica didn't exist when James started playing guitar. He didn't practice Master of Puppets to get his downstroke speed up, right? It's ridiculous. Instead, I'm quite sure that James spent hours and hours and hours playing along with his favorite punk rock records by bands like the Ramones, the Misfits, and all that other great old school punk stuff. Hi. And you can increase your speed and endurance the exact same way that James did just by playing along with some of these tunes with, let's say, a little bit more of an educated approach. Rather than just putting on a song like, let's say, Blitzkrieg Bop by the Ramones and trying to play the whole thing all downstroke, I recommend instead taking a more, training for a marathon kind of approach with it. Let's say that you play the verses all downstroke. Okay, by then you're probably starting to feel that lactic acid buildup coming on in your forearms and stuff. So then at that point, whenever it gets to the chorus, hey ho, let's go, maybe then take it to an alternate strumming approach. And after you've had that kind of rest break, then jump right back into the verse with your downstroke action happening again. And after that's easy for you to do, then try to get halfway through the chorus using only downstrokes before you take that rest of alternate strumming. Honestly, the absolute best way to do this is by learning tunes, especially simple punk rock songs. They're usually just, power chord shapes moving around the neck. That way you can really concentrate on what your right hand is doing, making sure you're not building up too much tension, that you're staying nice and loose. That's honestly one of the reasons I suspect that James wears his guitar so low, keeps his shoulder from kind of creeping up on him while he's doing all those downstrokes and stuff, right? His hand's all the way down at like his knees almost, so it's gonna stay a little bit more relaxed. Maybe you try that too. Misfits stuff is perfect for this. Metallica's even got some Misfits covers you could do. You could play along with Last Caress and do downstrokes for the verses, alternate strumming for the chorus of the song, and again, just kind of get deeper and deeper with how long you can do those downstrokes as you go. It's gonna take a while. This is not an overnight process, just like learning to run a marathon is not. These things take a while to develop and grow, but this is the most fun way to do it. Don't bore yourself to death sitting in front of a metronome all day. Play some damn music. I'm sure that James would tell you the exact same thing. And the last thing I want to leave you guys with is one of the most important things of all, which is to remember that James's all downstroke playing isn't necessarily all downstrokes. It's all downstrokes on the 8th notes, meaning if it's rhythmically falling in 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, yeah, that's going to be all downstrokes. But if it's in between the cracks of any of those, 1 E and 2 E and if it's on either of those 16th notes around the downbeat and the upbeat, that's where he uses upstrokes. A perfect example of that is that main rhythmic figure that we hear in Disposable Heroes. Let me play it here and count it as I go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and You can see how if the note is landing on the downbeat or the upbeat, it's a downstroke, but if it's anywhere else, that's where those upstrokes are coming into play. Now with a song like Master of Puppets, it's almost entirely 8th notes, especially the main most important parts of the song. There's only a few parts in this tune that actually delve into 16th note use. One is that riff that we hear way later on in the song. You'll notice in that riff that there is a gallop before you walk up or down the scale. At that point, this is where we're dipping into 16th notes. If in doubt, count it out. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3, 4 and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3, 4 and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So there you go, guys. Everything you need to build a downstroke machine worthy of the master himself, James Hetfield. Learning those classic Metallica songs really did so much for me as a player, and I'm so excited and happy to see a generation of young people that are discovering this music and hearing it again for the first time. Like, I can't imagine being a young person and hearing Battery for the first time right now. You know, I remember what that was like for me, so it makes me really excited to know that other people are having that same experience right now. Thanks as always for watching and subscribing to my channel. By the way, have you subscribed yet? I checked out my YouTube analytics the other day, and I think like 60% of my views are from people that aren't subscribed to my channel. Come on, go ahead and subscribe. Hit that button down there. That way you can always stay informed whenever I upload a new slice of fried gold right here on my channel. Be sure to ring the bell in there for notifications. If you like this video and want to help support my channel as well as gain access to a ton of bonus goodies, be sure to sign up to that Patreon page today at patreon.com/BenEllerGuitars. And be sure to let me know in the comments section what Metallica song you're working on right now. Well guys, it's been fun as always, but I think it's about time for me to crank up some Misfits tunes and work on my downstroking myself. As for you guys, I recommend you get away from the computer and do the same. Play some music. Alright guys, less clicking, more picking.